The United States is running concentration camps on our southern border, and that is exactly what they are. They are concentration camps. And if that doesn't bother you, we can have, okay, whatever. I want to talk to the people that are concerned enough with humanity to say that we should not, that never again means something. And that the fact that concentration camps are now an institutionalized practice in the home of the free is extraordinarily disturbing. And we need to do something about it. This week, immigrant children were moved to the same internment camps where the Japanese were held in the earlier 20th century. And this is not even about a crisis. Is it okay to still have children? We need a universal sense of urgency. And so it's basically like there's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. And people are trying to introduce watered down proposals that are frankly going to kill us. The way I feel about it is, first and foremost, we have to empower and center the people of Venezuela. This is really an issue of a failure of democracy. And when we see a failure of democracy, like for example in our country, our planet is going to face disaster if we don't turn this ship around. And so it's basically like there's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. Is it okay to still have children? And I mean, not just financially, because people are graduating with $20,000, $30,000, $100,000 worth of student loan debt, and so they can't even afford to have kids in a house, but also just this basic moral question, like what do we do? And even if you don't have kids, there are still children here in the world, and we have a moral obligation to them, to leave a better world for them. And this idea that if we just, I've been working on this for X amount of years, it's not good enough. We need a universal sense of urgency, and people are trying to introduce watered down proposals that are frankly going to kill us. A lack of urgency is going to kill us. It doesn't matter if you agree that climate change is an important issue. At this point, it doesn't matter. If you believe climate change is a problem, that's not even the issue. The issue is how urgently you feel we need to fix it. And if you do not have a sense of urgency to try to turn this around in 10 years, how is that different than a person who's just... the way I feel about it is, first and foremost, we have to empower and center the people of Venezuela and the will of the public. That is the number one issue that we have to center here, because really the issues of our time, people want to make this about an ideology, this is about socialism, this is about capitalism, this is about this, that, and the other. And it doesn't, what people don't understand is that this is really kind of an issue of authoritarianism versus democracy in many different ways. And just like we don't point to countries like Zimbabwe or other nations, other failed states that use capitalist frameworks and say, oh, look, because this nation has hyperinflation and is a failed state, this tells you the failures of capitalism. First of all, this is really an issue of a failure of democracy. And I would say that people want to say my ideology is this, or my ideology is that. What I believe in, above all else, is is a true democracy? Is democracy as a form of government, and democracy in the workplace, democracy in our economy? That is one of my number one guiding principles. And when we see a failure of democracy, like for example in our country, where corporations and the rich